Who am I? And who are you? What is it that makes me me? And what is it that makes you you? Is it merely just the combination of our genetics, lived experience, and cultural upbringing? Or is there something else? Is there some other part of who we are that extends beyond just genetics, experiences, and cultural upbringing? Some sort of unique nature that was with us from the beginning? Now, what we are really asking here is whether or not, when humans are born into this world, do we come in with a blank slate or do we come in with a blueprint? And this, my friends, I think is probably the most important question that we can possibly be asking when inquiring into human nature and who we are. Now, our culture believes in the blank slate. That is the basis of our entire developmental and educational model. That is why all of our school systems and education is based on filling us with facts, because there is the belief that we are blank slates, and therefore, because we are blank slates, we have to program the blank slate. That's the obvious next step, right? You have to paint on the canvas if it's blank. If our culture believed in the blueprint, then our developmental and educational models would be completely different, because then the education would be based on drawing out. It would be based on helping us try to connect with this blueprint, this unique nature, who we are. That would be the goal of development and education. But obviously that is not the case. Now, I can hear a lot of you listening to this that are already saying, well, what do you mean by a blueprint? What do you mean a unique nature? I am just who I am. I'm Blake, there's no other version of me. There's no other person. It doesn't quite make sense what you're talking about. And I get it. It would be like me trying to tell you about your long lost cousin that you've never met. You could conceptually think about it, but in terms of experiential reference points, you have none. So it's hard to understand who that is. And that is why I talked about our educational model, because again, many of us, from the day that we were born, it was the view of the blank slate. We were being introduced into how to be a functioning member of society, how to be a polite, nice boy, a member of Western culture, and then we went through school, and it was we need to learn these facts. We need to learn how to do this, how to do that. And summed up best is this quote from Seth Godin, which says, in all of the years of schooling and education, we're never asked a question that they already don't know the answer to, So we're never asked a question that they don't already know the answer to. And to me, that hits the hammer on the nail of this current problem. Again, a more traditional view of education, like the ancient Greeks practiced, would be about drawing out. Now, speaking of the ancient Greeks, because we are talking about psychology, did you know that the original meaning of psychology, based on the etymology of the word, which comes from psyche and logos, literally means the study of soul? Go look up what the word psychology means. It means the study of soul. And these were not hippies in the corners, in the alleys of the streets who were talking about this. This was the mainstream view of what psychology was. It was the study of soul, but obviously this changed. Now, that's a story for another day. We're just coming on quickly here because I don't have a lot of time. So I opened up with the idea of the blank slate or the blueprint, but doesn't it just make sense that there's some unique part of what makes us who we are, right? And if it doesn't make sense, then let's go down here. The interesting thing is that you don't get to choose what you are interested in. You don't get to decide what you're curious about. You don't get to decide when you watch a movie what characters you resonate with. You don't get to decide when you listen to a podcast what ideas strike you the most. Every single person who would go through the podcast or the movie or whatever have you be it, they would have a different experience that is entirely unique to them. Now, again, you can gaslight yourself into believing that, oh, well, that's just random. That's just random chance. Okay? That's just because of my genetics. That's just because of the way that I was brought up and my experience that's formed me into who I am. That's one view. Okay, cool. If that's you, I'm just going to invite you into experimentation. I'm not going to ask you to believe what I believe. I'm going to ask you to try it on and experience it for a little while to come to find your own conclusions about this. What if the unique way that you were interested and curious about things, the unique experience, the unique characters that you connect with when you watch a movie, the unique ideas that you resonate with when you listen to a speaker. What if that wasn't all random? What if those were actually breadcrumbs leading you back into your unique nature? Now, the problem for a lot of people here is that in our culture, most people are malnourished in terms of them feeding their interests and curiosities. Most people, after they go through their schooling, they never read a book again. Most people don't really have a lot of space in their life where they are getting to feed their hunger to learn. I firmly believe that every single human being likes to learn. But because of our educational model, many people have been wounded about learning, and they think that they hate it. They think that they hate reading, but really they just had a bad experience of it. All this to say, if the rabbit hole of our interests and curiosities was the bottom of the ocean, most people have barely dipped their toes into the water. So my invitation for you is to start pulling on those threads, is to start exploring those rabbit holes. Because in my experience and the experience of others, as you start to feed your curiosity and your interests, and you be curious about what you're curious about, and you just begin to notice, these things after watching the movie, the podcast, just because those are the examples I'm using. Notice what you notice, okay? Because again, you don't get to choose what you notice. There's this amazing quote from Eric Ghazi from his book, The Art of Dharma, which you all should check out. I'm going to remix the quote a little bit. Here it goes. You'll notice your unique nature when you notice that you don't decide what you notice. What is that? How do you explain that? How do you explain that noticing function that you definitely don't get to decide? Again, we can gaslight ourselves and say it's all random, whatever. But what if it wasn't? What if it was through starting to follow those pieces? Because again, here's the thing. Most people don't follow those threads. Most people overlook them. Most people, oh, it's just random. Or, oh, everybody when they listen to this resonates with those ideas. Or everyone resonates with that character. Or everyone's interested in that, which is not true. Is not true. Those are parts of you that are protecting you from ever exploring those areas. Because there's parts of you that actually probably know that there's going to be some change, there's going to be some growth, there's going to be some potent realizations that come through exploring those areas. And there's a lot of parts of us who would rather not change, who are all good no matter where we're at. And so it's a fucking shame that our culture has led us to believe that your interests, your curiosities, they're just fun hobbies. They're cute parts of who you are, but they're not that important. They're not that worthwhile following. If they were worthwhile following, people would be doing things differently. So my invitation is to experiment with truly going all in on following those parts of who you are. Go all in on following those threads, because what you're going to see is that your interests and curiosities, they grow, they expand, they become richer, they become more colorful. And really what we're talking about is taste, your taste. As you follow and pull on those threads of your interests and curiosities, you're feeding those parts of you. What's going to happen is you're going to start to see how unique you are. You're going to start to see the parts of you, the parts of your nature that really stand out from all the people around you, that stand out from your environment, that stand out from the way that you were brought up. The parts of you that make you weird. Thank fucking God for it. And this is where it gets interesting. Because what we're talking about right now is we're talking about feeding those parts of you, feeding the curiosity, feeding the interest. And then the next step really is, what arises as you start to do that? What desires start to arise? What ideas? You might have an idea, oh, I actually want to start a podcast. Or you might have an idea, oh, I want to go attend this thing. I see that this guy is coming in town. I want to go attend his workshop, his speaking event, his thing. I want to do blank. There's going to be desires that start to show up, that start to come up in your life. And obviously, the next step after that is start to do those frickin' things. Because some of these pieces, you might realize, oh, that was cool, but there's not much there for me. It was what it was, but it wasn't like I didn't love it that much. Other things, you're going to be like, holy shit, there is a there. I love this. I love these people. I am so inspired by this. Again, don't wait for the perfect thing to take an action to finally do one of those desires, because it's an infinite game, y'all. Like, the waiting is a protection. Start exhausting your desires because you're checking the box onto the next one and you're not going to think about them anymore because you know that you've explored them, you've tried them out. Okay, so that's one part of it. But the next part is that I firmly believe, contrary to the cultural story we've been given, that every single human at some point is asked to make the transition from mere consumer to creator. And I believe that your interests and curiosities that are unique to you are confessions from your unique nature. They are hints telling you where you are being asked to be and create in your life. And so, for example, if you're a massive bookworm, which not everyone is, that's the thing that we gaslight ourselves. We say, oh, but everyone's like this. Everyone's like this. And I see people all the time who do this. It's not true. Most of those things that you probably say that about is actually very unique to you. Not everyone has those things. So yeah, if you're a huge bookworm, like you can't stop reading, you've always loved reading, I firmly believe you are being called to be a writer. Like I think our interests and curiosities are confessions of the deeper parts of our nature, and we're all being asked to be creators. So where does this go? What's kind of the big picture? Because I love maps. Okay. Over time, number one, the journey of feeding your curiosity and your taste, holy shit, it is so satisfying. It is feeding such a deep part of who we are, a deeply meaningful part of who we are. So let's forget about the end goal for now. That's going to radically improve your life. You are going to be so much more fulfilled and alive by feeding, because remember, those are unique parts of you. You are feeding the unique parts of who you are. Those are important. Those will change your life, okay? So, yeah, forget the end goal for a moment. Just feel into that, okay? But on a larger scale, over time, remember, feeding, the consuming turns into the creating. And that opens a whole new chapter. All of a sudden, we're creating. And guess what? You're creating from the place that is entirely unique to you. Now, a question for another video that's beyond the scope of today is like, where does that unique nature come from? What is the hand that is weaving these parts of who we are? This blueprint that we were born with, okay? That's like, we're getting into deep waters of spiritual talk here. But that's an important thing to contemplate. The thing that I want to offer for you now is that whatever put that blueprint there, whatever the reason that that blueprint is there, that unique nature, we probably ought to feed it and express it and grow it. That's probably what it wants to do. That was probably the intention of it being planted within us from the beginning. So again, consuming eventually turns to creating. That is the infinite horizon of becoming who we are in this lifetime. It's going to ask you to do scary things. It is going to ask you to grow in ways that scare the shit out of you, that you would rather not. That resistance comes up, but it is also the game, the path of such rich meaning and fulfillment. And it is the pathway that gives rise to the feeling that I am living in alignment with how I ought to be in this life. Giving rise to the feeling of, I know I am doing what I am here to do. I know I am on the path of becoming who I am here to become. And that feeling is the feeling that moves fucking mountains and recreates new worlds. That is the feeling that changes paradigms. In my opinion, living your life in alignment with that feeling is the greatest gift you can offer the world in this time of so much crisis where it feels like the world is ending and we need fucking solutions. That is the greatest solution I believe that on the individual level we can give to the world. Period, full stop, end of story. So I think I'm going to stop there because that felt pretty bomb. And I think that's a good place to stop. There's so much there, but really the essence for me here is pulling on the threads of your unique nature. And I think a great place to start is your taste, is your unique interests, your curiosities, and just noticing. This piece on noticing is so huge. So I hope you're catching that. Most people don't notice. And I think the deeper reason why they're not noticing is because they don't feel like it's important to notice. There's no reason to notice. There's no like there that's worth starting to notice what's happening now in order to get there. Bullshit. It's a horrible story that our culture's given you. I'm sorry that you've been gaslit out of that. It matters. It matters so much. So I hope you enjoyed this. My name is Blake Shalfa. I didn't introduce myself earlier. If you're new here, I'm about to go get outside. That's why I'm shirtless. And who the fuck cares why I'm shirtless? I'm shirtless because I want to be shirtless. Get out of here if you think I need to put a shirt on. And subscribe, share it, like, comment. I would love to hear from you. And yeah, subscribe so you can join for the future videos coming at you. And I look forward to more.